anyone in the chat? I don't have an audience like Iggy's yet, so he's got like 100 people in his chat. Iggy.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. He gets like 100 people in his chat. But we're live now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Joe Palmetto Law Show. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I am going to interview Yolanda, who is you're an ER nurse, correct?
I'm a hospice nurse.
A hospice nurse, and you work at the hospital?
Yes.
Yolanda? Okay.
I work at the hospital.
Okay, yes. A hospice nurse who works at a hospital in Delaware. And she's going to tell us about her experiences with the opiate crisis. You know, on my show, I'm running a series talking about the opiate crisis. I think it's an issue that is not covered enough in the media in America. So I'm trying to shine a little bit of light on it, inform some people. And I thought that she would have some really interesting input. So let's see if we can try something here. Do you have a TV on the back? Can you turn that off by any chance? Yeah. Okay. And if we do this, so this is a little unconventional here. Maybe we can do this. Let's see here.
I didn't bring my computer, just my tablet, my phone.
No, you're good. You're good. I just, I don't have the biggest technology set up yet, but I'd like the audience to be able to interact with us a little bit more. If I could raise, there we go. Okay, do that. And okay, that'll work. All right. Okay. Thanks for joining us, Yolanda. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. So tell us a little bit. So what do? You live in Delaware, and what kind of work do you do?
I'm a hospice nurse at one of the trauma hospitals in Delaware.
Okay. And what's a trauma hospital?
It's a trauma hospital. It's also a teaching hospital for residents, new doctors coming in, fellowships. We have a unit at the hospital, for hospice patients who are imminent or trauma that will not live. We do take patients. So that's what I do. I do end-of-life care.
Okay, so ER patients come in. So there's hospice patients and emergency room patients will come in.
Yes, if the patients are not going to make it, and we want the families, to have a private area in a room that looks like a home or a room, we do get them. Yes.
Okay.
It could be accident victims, shootings, fights, opiate overdoses. We're seeing more and more of that.
Okay. All right.
I see it a lot where I live.
Okay. And where in Delaware do you live?
I live in Delaware City.
Okay. And is that where the hospital is as well?
It's in Newark.
Newark.
It's in Newark, Delaware.
Okay. That's different from Newark, New Jersey, right? They're not even close, right? Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. All right. And how long have you been working at this hospital?
I've been with the company for 11 years. I did the home health care, and I still do home health care. But I went into the hospital 6 years ago.
Okay. And
more intense in the hospital. We manage symptoms, so we're very aggressive. In the hospital, where we use IV drips and more of the modern medication that we cannot use in the field.
Okay. Interesting. So it's a sort of like a specialty medical center, it sounds like to me. You're just end of life and emergencies. So it's not like a full blown hospital. You're just taking on those like end of life care and specific emergencies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And the reason I had you on is I met you on another channel. I'll give a shout out to that. My buddy Iggy MB5679. And when I went on there, we were chatting a little bit, and you knew that I was doing these episodes on the opiate crisis, and you had mentioned to me that you see overdoses daily in your job. Is that right?
My job and where I live. I've had a few friends that I grew up with that have died, and they have children, and they can't even. The families can't even bury them because they don't have the money or cremation. So I've had to be an advocate for these families to have these people cremated for their kids, so that their kids still have them. And I also educate in my town. I have to, because we're losing. At least we're losing 228 people versus a year now, probably tripled than 2015. So every day I'm out teaching. I teach every day. So if I'm not teaching hospice, I'm out. I will drive in my car and teach the kids in my town.
What do you do? Do you just find them on the street and talk to them and try to give them some advice?
I know their parents. I know that what they do, and I teach the kids, especially the kids that their loved ones have passed away, their dads. And I talk to the kids, and I tell them they don't want to grow up like their dad, or they don't want to be like that, I talked to a child last week that it took him 4 months to find his dad. His dad was in a morgue in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
For 4 months.
Yeah.
And he had overdosed on heroin. And the boy was taking methadone, and I said, why would you want to go that route? Your dad went.
Right.
And he said he was trying to clean himself up, but the methadone is the worst thing, because it doesn't get them off. It just, they keep giving them the methadone.
Right. And they might do the methadone for a while and then go back, get off it, go to the street drugs, go back and forth. Yeah.
Sometimes they do, and the thing is, we have a detox center in Delaware, and they go to the detox center for 3 days, and they come out and they're doing the drugs again. So it's like a revolving door. They don't get the help, and I push that they need to go to a sober living house. You cannot come back to the place that you've been doing the drugs at, because you're going to redo them again.
Sure.
And they come back. And, I had a boy, he went to Florida. I had two people, went to Florida, lived in a sober living house, got flooded out, came back to Delaware, and got stressed out and overdosed. And the first person they call is me, because they don't have the money to bury the patient, bury their child or cremate them. So me, being in the field that I am, that I know a lot of funeral homes that do help, cremate these kids for almost nothing and give them back to their families.
So the funeral homes, they'll do that if they know the family doesn't have any money. They'll kind of help out. Yeah.
They do in Delaware a lot, and I'm kind of running out of resources. And I teach these kids, I'm running out of resources. You guys need to clean up your act. You need to stay in these sober living houses where you stay clean. And, a majority of them did. Like, I follow 23 and 1, and he really, that's how I found Iggy, is, doing all this work with this opiate crisis. I mean, I have a daughter who's going to medical school in South Carolina.
Congrats.
And I showed her,
yeah.
Do you want to live like this? And I showed her different places. Do you want to live like this, or do you want to live like how we live? Like, do you want to be somebody in life? Because she has seen it. She has seen these people die, or what I've had to tell her that somebody's overdosed that she's known. And she doesn't, my daughter won't even take a Tylenol,
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Are you, Yolanda, are you from this town originally? Is this where you grew up?
Yes.
Okay.
I was born in Maine, and we moved to Delaware City. But it's not just in Delaware City.
Sure.
We have 3 counties. We have Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex County. And these counties, I think the worst county is Sussex.
Mm-hmm.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
Delaware.
Yeah, it's pretty bad over here too. And I think there's certain states in the country that are hit a lot worse than others. And I've heard, a lot of it I think is in the Northeast and the Midwest and West Virginia. So states like Pennsylvania or Delaware, or West Virginia, Ohio are all hit pretty bad. So you've worked at this particular facility for 6 years, right?
Yes.
Is that, have you seen, so when you started there, were you already, acutely aware of the opiate crisis? So when you went in there and you started working there, were you seeing overdose patients right away?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen it in the community before that.
Yeah.
I've worked in really bad areas that white people shouldn't be in.
Mm.
They say, white people don't come on our block,
Mm-hmm.
So I do see it. I mean, it is a really bad problem.
Mm-hmm.
I've been approached and asked if I wanted to buy some drugs, and I'm very against drugs. I'm very much against it.
Yeah.
Just seeing what I've seen, the sorrowness of kids that have lost their parents at a young age in their 20s, overdosing on drugs. It's sad, very sad.
So before 2013, did you work in an ER, or have you just been in this facility the last 6 years?
I've been in this facility for the last 6 years, but
Okay.
I do work in the field also. Like, I see patients in the field.
Okay.
So I do go in some very bad areas.
Now, in the 6 years, have you seen an increase in overdoses the past 6 years?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what the number is? Was it like when you started 6 years ago? Would you maybe be 100?
It's probably tripled.
It's tripled. It's in the last 6 years.
Yes, at least tripled.
And this year? How about this year? 2019. We're about halfway through. Has there been more than last year?
Yes, I actually talked to a fireman who I was close with, and they were running out of Narcan because the Narcan's like $250 for one bottle, and they were actually running out of the Narcan because they were using it so much, and that is one fire company.
Wow.
In a small area.
Yeah, I was thinking of having a firefighter on the show as well to talk about that issue.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is the president of a firehouse where we live.
Okay. And what so it sounds to me like a big part of his job is responding to overdoses. Is that right?
Well, yes. He's the president, but my dad had passed away 7 years ago, so I rented my home.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother-in-law called me one night, and he happened to go out on a fire call. And he told me that he had went to my rental house and told me that he went to an overdose there.
Oh, wow.
So I went to the police station up the back stairs in my pajamas. I was so angry to find out that was the 4th overdose in my rental home.
Wow.
Overdose. So they had to hit the man 3 times with Narcan.
So was it your actual tenant that was overdosing, or was it people who were coming in? Wow.
Yes.
Was he paying the rent during this time?
No, actually he was not.
No, okay.
We were taking action to get him out, but of course they have more rights than we do.
Right.
But the police did get involved, and they did get him out very quickly.
That's wild.
Since
That
then, I've sold the house.
okay. Okay.
Just, I mean, and that was in my home, and I'm such an advocate against drugs.
Sure.
Knowing it's done in my home, I was so angry that the town police are close to. It's a small town, so everybody knows everybody. The town police know us, and the town police know my sister and my mom, and they ask my sister and my mother, how come they're so passive and I'm so aggressive? I'm aggressive because I want to fight against these drugs. And the town cops have done a 360 in our town.
Good.
Our town is getting a lot better.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen there's some police departments that are very proactive, and then there are some that just aren't responsive to it at all. And that may be that they may just be exhausted because it's exhausting, especially in a small town like yours and small towns all over this country. I mean, they're seeing overdoses all the time. They feel like anything that they do isn't going to make a difference. And so I think that you get that, again, that sort of burnout in some departments. And then some are more proactive than others, but it's not an easy thing to handle.
We have a chief, and he is very proactive. He is not going to give up. He is an retired state trooper who will not give up, and he will not give up.
Awesome.
He will not.
Awesome.
He is a great guy, and the other two are great. I mean, they are on top of things.
Yeah.
So the drug rate in our town has went down significantly.
Gotcha.
But it
Good.
still happens. It still happens. Like, a couple weeks ago, our house is fenced up. The trailer court is behind us, a trailer park, and the ambulance was over there. And again, they were there for like the third or fourth time. My mom is telling me because of a drug overdose. So and I said to the cops, "Why don't you do anything?" And they said, "We can't. We can't arrest them. There's nothing we can do. They can overdose, and there's nothing that we can do to them."
Yeah, there exists in certain states, and it's in Pennsylvania. I don't know the exact, but there's a Good Samaritan law. So if you, for example, you have two people using drugs, and one of them overdoses, and the other one calls an ambulance or the police, neither of them, both of them may be protected from prosecution.
They are in Delaware also.
Yeah, most states likely have laws like that, and those. I think those laws are good because they save lives. Okay, but the police can, they can investigate and do other things. But yeah, it's true that if they respond to an overdose, they can't necessarily start just prosecuting these individuals, because then it would discourage people from calling an ambulance to help their friends or other people who overdosed.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I mean, I think those laws are good laws, but at the same time, you'd wish there'd be more that the police, law enforcement could do in those situations.
But I blame the doctors, years of giving out opiates and then stopping that, and especially in Delaware, they have stopped doing that, and they have caused a problem. In Delaware now, if you are prescribed a narcotic, it goes to the state of Delaware, and they are monitoring that.
Good.
So they monitor any medications, a Schedule 2, your name goes to Dover, to the DEA. So they watch, who gets prescriptions, who doesn't. So they are on it in Delaware. It's just a matter of, 95, I went by a car and going to see a patient, and they had pulled over a guy, and he had enough heroin to kill 2 million people in the car. It's
crazy. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Really unbelievable.
So 95, I-95 is the route that they go.
Yeah, I-95 runs all up and down the East Coast, right? It doesn't, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, yeah, my opinion, a lot of it is, and I do think there's been a crackdown on doctors and the prescribing. They've even, district attorneys have prosecuted a lot of doctors. They did some big busts in West Virginia. I know, I'm talking local news. They got some doctors in Allegheny County around Pittsburgh. The problem now that I see is, like, I do think the country's maybe turning the corner on prescribing it, but these companies and doctors have already created millions of addicts, right? And now, those people have already moved on from the prescription drugs, right? So they're buying the street drugs. And at the same time, the last few years, we've seen an increase in fentanyl. And so even if they're cracked, maybe we're on the right path as far as reducing new addicts. We may see higher deaths of old addicts because of the fentanyl. So let me ask you, so how many overdoses do you see at the ER, like on a weekly or daily basis?
There's probably 25 to 50 a day, I'm sure, down there.
25 to 50 a day?
A day, at least.
Wow. And so, are most of these people surviving?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of them do.
Okay.
Because they get them in the ambulance and they Narcan them. They even give Narcan to the drug addicts. You know what I mean?
Sure. So you mean they give them Narcan to take with them to use? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So they get some to, like, take home? Is that or what?
To like family members, friends,
Okay.
I've even asked, I carry it in my car, and they're like, it's $250 a vial.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, the government does give it to the ambulance, the fire companies, the police, but for like us to carry it, it's not happening.
Okay. So, when you get so they generally administer the Narcan, like directly on the scene or in the ambulance?
Yes. In the ambulance, yes. On the scene.
Okay. And for our audience that may not know, can you tell them what Narcan is and how it's delivered? Administered?
Narcan is it takes the opiate away from the patient. It reverts the opiate, so they come out of it right away.
Okay.
In seconds.
Okay. And it's administered with like a needle. Is that correct, Yolanda?
Yes, it's up to IM. Yes, quickly.
Okay. And does it work every time, or the majority of the time, or
It does. Sometimes they have to administer 2 or 3 of them.
Okay. And are there times though when they administer it and like it doesn't work or it's already too late? I'm sure that happens, right?
Yes.
So I guess in that situation, it's generally that they got there too late, right?
Yes.
Okay. And these people that come in, now, are the doctors, taking their blood and seeing what substance caused the overdose?
Yes. And some they send out because they don't know what they are getting. So some of it they don't even know what they've taken. So yeah.
Okay. And so, of the overdoses that you see, would you say a majority, and I don't know if you have this knowledge in your job, like, is it mostly fentanyl or is it mostly heroin or what, a mix or both, or?
It's a mix. It's a mix.
Okay. Do you think though, with the prevalence of fentanyl, that it's causing more of the overdoses? I mean, or most of them have some sort of fentanyl in them, or what?
Most all do.
Okay. Okay. So what's the protocol when you get a patient in who, let's say, the ambulance responded, they administered the Narcan on the scene, and they bring them into your facility. What do you guys do next?
I'm not sure what the ER does.
Mhm.
I guess they go home.
Okay.
We just get them if they're dying, but generally they go home.
Okay. Okay. So there's circumstances where you'll get them and they're dying, and so that's when you step in.
Yes.
Okay. And what is it that you do? Do you take
We
measures
just
to
keep them comfortable.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
there's no
Okay.
turning back then.
All right.
Keep them
I'm getting
comfortable.
Okay. And are these people conscious? Are any of them conscious? Or are they
No.
generally
No,
No.
not at all.
Okay. So if they're in that condition, they're out. That's it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And what about what is the percentage of males to females that come in for these overdoses? I'm getting text.
Males. I would say more males.
Okay. Is it like 60-40 or like 70% males or 80% males or what?
More about 80% male.
Okay. So it's sort of, so for every 4 or 5 men, you get 1 woman. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And what about their ages? They tend to be younger or older, or?
I would say between 20 and 30.
Okay. Interesting. Do you get some? I meant you get some older people, maybe 40s.
Not much.
Not much.
Not much. When we do, it's not a lot of older people. No, it's the younger generation.
That's interesting.
Very.
Yeah.
It's the younger now the older generation is more like alcohol, but the younger generation is the drugs.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, my opinion is this thing really started to take off in the mid 2000s, and we're into 2019 now, so only the last 10 or 15 years. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, because I really never heard of heroin before then.
Right.
I mean, I knew there was an opiate crisis. I've witnessed the death of a nurse, and after that, it was pure on game for me. I was like so pro against it after that.
Sure. So
and they would say, "Oh, nurses are at higher risk and doctors are at higher risk." That may be true, but I don't see that.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I asked is you hear a lot of stories about older people who go on opiates because they had a surgery or some sort of medical condition, and then they end up getting hooked. And I was just wondering if that was part of the population that you see that's overdosing. You're telling me not really.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's the younger generation.
Yeah, and I don't have evidence to back this up, but it seems to me like, if an older person sort of gets hooked, they're less likely to maybe take that jump to using heroin or fentanyl or street drugs. Whereas I think a younger person is maybe, more adventurous in that sense. I mean, not to say that it doesn't happen. I don't know. You were shaking your head. You don't agree with that?
Listen, I have patients who are dying that don't want to even take medication. The older generation.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're agreeing with me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have to fight with them to take it, and I say to them, I don't see 67 or 70-year-olds on the street, hooking for morphine or Ativan or something,
Right.
I say that to them because they don't like to take medication.
Sure.
But the younger generation, I mean, now I heard, and it was clarified that now these kids are overdosing on gabapentin, and I'm like, that is a nerve pill for a diabetic patient. So
yeah.
They're experimenting on gabapentin, Seroquel. I mean, I'm learning a lot. So it's, fentanyl and the opiate crisis is there, but they're venturing off to Seroquel and gabapentin. So
yeah,
it's they're just trying everything, and it's just, they don't know. They're playing with fire, and they don't understand how bad it is.
Absolutely. And with fentanyl, like you talked about, but it's common knowledge. I'm of the opinion that if most of the drugs on the street, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but if most of what we were dealing with was straight heroin, okay, like probably what was on the streets in the 1960s and the 1970s, okay, or the 80s, I don't think we'd have as many deaths, okay? There'd still be people overdosing and dying, but fentanyl, and the science backs this up, is just so much more deadly, and you only need a little bit of it to cross into that deadly threshold. And I'm not saying we still wouldn't see a high amount of overdoses with just heroin, but the heroin and the fentanyl together, or the straight fentanyl, is just a really, really deadly combination. And what you said with the gabapentin, just it's just, maybe it's just a sign of the younger generation being willing to do anything to get a high in a situation when maybe they don't have access to what they want, or who knows, maybe that is the drug of choice for some people. I don't know. That's the first I heard of that.
The fentanyl is not even coming from the United States, so it's not even the real fentanyl. I mean, fentanyl is to be given over a course of a couple of days. I mean, unless you're giving it IV to someone who is imminent or dying. But fentanyl is meant to be given over a course of 72 hours, not in 2 seconds. You know what I mean? So it's going to kill you.
Isn't it administered in a patch? Isn't there a patch form?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And actually, when we apply or take it off, we have to wear gloves.
Wow.
And we check, like if we apply fentanyl patch, we check every shift that fentanyl patch is still on that patient, because you have diversion with family members.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Family members can come in and take the fentanyl patch off the patient,
so that they can use it, so they can get high.
Yes.
Have you seen that happen?
Yes, that happens.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So we don't use a lot of fentanyl patches, but we do use them, but we do check each shift, and when we do rounds with the doctor, we do a second check to make sure that patch is on that patient. Just for safety reasons, I do it because of, I don't want somebody taking it off a patient and dying, with that, because I know that fentanyl is what they want. You know what I mean? Sure.
That's wild. So it's administered mostly through IV.
It can be administered IV, but it's very regulated. It's by the doctors, the staff, the palliative group. We have a palliative team, so it is monitored very. It's counted. It's accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
So the fentanyl is not coming from the United States that they're overdosing on. It is the fentanyl coming from Mexico, wherever they're getting it from.
Gotcha. Okay. So have you, you said before that basically the people come in and so these overdoses, they've come in and they are either already recovered, right? And they're okay. And they just bring them into the hospital and then just, I don't know what, give them some water or some liquid IV and let them go.
The majority, because they have a right to leave,
Yeah.
They don't have to go to rehab. They have a right to leave.
Right. And then you'll get those people who aren't recovering, and you're just going to make them comfortable until the end, essentially.
Yes,
okay.
For the families.
Have you ever seen any strange cases or that you would want to talk about?
I've seen one that I'm not sure if I can really talk about it because if it, of a HIPAA violation.
Okay, you don't have to. You don't have to. If it's don't worry. Yeah, don't worry about it. That's fine. We don't have to get into any specific stuff. I'm an attorney, so I understand where you are coming from. So the town that you live in, about how many people? What's the population?
Probably like 8,000, maybe, or less.
Okay. And so you would say that this has had a great impact on the town, right? I mean, it's probably affected.
It has. I've had, I know of 4 deaths that I've had to, in the last year, that I've had to intervene and help the families.
Gotcha.
Very sad cases. They have young kids, in high school, and the kids are smart. I mean, they're growing up. They're learning that it's not right. I'm talking to them. If I see them, I stop. I talk to them. I get on their nerves because I'm always talking to them. But they need to be talked to. I mean, they need education.
Sure.
And they need to be taught young.
Sure.
And we need to catch these kids in junior high and high school. Now, this weekend, I'm going to be working at the Firefly, which is a big festival Coachella has around the world. And these kids, if you would, I'm going to go live on Facebook, and you see them, it's unreal. They don't care. It's like they have 9 lives and they don't.
So you think at that festival, most or a lot of them are probably high on opiates?
Not opiates as much as probably the ecstasy, the drinking, and everything is checked. Bags are checked and all, but they still get through. Drugs don't get through, So I'm working from noon to 3 a.m., so I'll be doing triple shifts there. So we see a lot.
Sure.
At that time.
Well, that's a nice, that's a great thing that you do in the community by going out there and talking to people, because, you have some real, you're seeing the impact up close and personal of what's happening. You're seeing people, die from this up close and personal. So that's great. That's a great thing that you're doing, getting out there and helping people. I think it's really awesome.
And me and my brother-in-law, we're going to be doing more. We're going to fight this battle, and our town is going to fight this battle, and we're going to try to, decrease it as much as we can over the next couple of years. It's going to take years.
Absolutely. And
I just watched a show or a court case for Johnson & Johnson, and the parents, it was a 25-year-old college student, and he died. He overdosed, and they brought Johnson and Johnson to court. And Johnson and Johnson asked the family, "How do you know it was our pill that killed your child?" So, just sad. It's sad.
It is. It is.
Purdue's another one.
Yeah.
They're under scrutiny, and Purdue owns a half of Delaware with their chicken farms.
Sure.
They have pharmaceuticals.
Is that the same Purdue, the chicken? I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Same family.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I know there's been some cities and towns across the country that started bringing lawsuits against these companies, and there's even been some federal law enforcement cases which have resulted in really, really big fines. Personally, I'd like to see some people punished criminally if they're actually responsible, under the law. So I think the tide is sort of turning on the larger level, but at the same time, there's already so many people hooked and so much of it out there. I'm not sure that even if we stop, we get the pharmaceuticals shut down, the doctors shut down, people are still going to be able to get it on the street and still be going after it on the street. That really, really worries me.
Yeah, they're knocking the doctors down. I sent you an article just recently. This doctor was running a full Walmart store.
Yeah.
A whole Walmart store, giving out Suboxones. And he was stealing from the government. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. What do you think on? So, and Evan, I'd like to hear your opinion. What do you think about? Do you think the legalization of marijuana is a good idea, and if it would actually have an impact on reducing the effect of the opiate crisis? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on marijuana is that if it was legalized, it would probably reduce it. I've had patients that have had it, and they have not taken anything. They just would vape it or smoke it or whatever. I don't care about the marijuana. Honestly,
right.
I think marijuana is a problem in the United States.
Yeah.
I'm not a marijuana smoker.
Right, right.
But I don't condone that marijuana. I don't like being smoked around me.
I gotcha. But you think if it was legalized, it might be at the very least, it's a good alternative for people dealing with pain, right? Like, so medically, like in Pennsylvania, it just became legalized medically. It's not recreational here. I don't know what it is in Delaware, if it's recreational or is it?
We have 3 dispensaries here in Delaware.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
not recreational.
So it's medical. Yeah. Okay.
It's medical only. Yes.
Yeah. It seems to me like it's personally, I think it's a good alternative if it's something that a doctor can use to prescribe to someone who has pain. It's plainly obvious it's better than giving that person an opiate, right? And it seems to help a lot of people, and even help in conditions that opiates may not, things like glaucoma, etc. So I'm a big advocate for it for medical usage. I personally, I also think it should be. I also think it should be legalized recreationally. I don't use it. I don't really even necessarily like being around it, but I don't mind if other people use it and this and that. And, my point of view is that, the cartels or the drug dealers that sell, most of them deal in all different drugs, right? They're going to deal in marijuana, cocaine, heroin. Well, if you legalize marijuana, that's a big cut of their business.
Yeah,
and
the drug
and
cartels.
and I think it would help weaken them. And I also, and I mean, who really knows? But personally, I think it'd be a good thing if it was legalized. I really do. I mean, alcohol is legalized in this country. Prohibition of alcohol didn't accomplish anything. I don't think prohibition of marijuana is. And at that point, law enforcement could focus more on stopping the hard drugs. So I don't know. We'll see.
Marijuana. I tell the kids all the time, I don't care how much marijuana you smoke. I don't care. Just stay away from the opiates.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say to, anybody? Let's say there may be an individual who's using drugs, watching this video, or family members. I mean, do you have any advice based on your experiences?
Yeah, there's help centers everywhere. There's clinics. There's help centers everywhere. They can go to and get help. I mean, intervention is there, and it's also a mental health problem. So
yeah,
they need to start there. You know what I mean? There is help out there.
Yeah,
there is help.
It's
and I've seen people get clean, and that's been down on the ground getting Narcan, and now is up walking, working, doing a great job, and it makes me feel proud that they're doing that. So I have seen people get off of it.
Sure. Yeah, I have too. And as a criminal defense attorney, I see, I get a lot of clients who are struggling with addiction, and I've seen some people really turn their lives around. But the truth of the matter is, you head down that path. Basically, two things. You're going to end up you got one or two options. You could end up getting Narcaned in an ambulance, or even dying, or you end up in jail. You end up in jail. You end up in prison.
And that's where I think that Iggy and 23 and 1 come in.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are really good advocates for people who come out of jail. They Iggy and 23 and 1 are doing well for themselves, and I think that they are inspiration for people. Their channels are inspirational for people who are drug addicts coming out of jail. Like I said to one of my renters, I said to the prosecutor, he was 18 years old, and she asked me, "What do you want done to him?" I said, "Rehab." So she put him in a drug diversion or drug class for 1 year, and if he messed up in that 1 year, he was to go to jail. And that's all I wanted. I didn't want any restitution for the damage that he did in my house. I just wanted him to get help, and he is sober and clean.
Oh, that's awesome. That's yeah. I'm glad to hear that. That's
So when the prosecutors come to me, in Delaware, they have prosecutors that come out and talk to you. If they're dirty and they're in jail, they need rehab.
Sure.
So the 18-year-old they were actually in jail, and I said, he needs to go to rehab for 1 year. He needs to get clean. And she agreed with me, and that's what she did with him.
Yeah.
She put him in a program for 1 year.
Good. That's I've had the same experience. Usually if they're low level offenses and they're first time, sometimes even second time offenders, the judges and the prosecutors are gonna, they're gonna want to get they're gonna want to get these people treatment. Now, if it just keeps happening over and over and over again, eventually they're left, the court system is left with no choice to put someone in jail or prison for an extended period of time. But I agree with you.
In jail, so.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. That's true, Yolanda. that's maybe.
We just had Maryland. They just indicted 19 people in Maryland for smuggling drugs into their jail system.
Yeah, yeah, that's very, very true. I don't know if there's any good answer. I mean, you're right. They're gonna get these drugs when they go into jail or prison. I think the way the court system looks at it is, if they're in the jail, they're not out there potentially putting other people at risk. But they will, but they will, they're usually going to try to put you through rehab. The first couple of times you get in trouble, whether it works or not, it's up to that person.
Yeah, I feel that's the way to go. That's in my heart, is get treatment and, stay off the drugs. And I just, do a lot of damage to a lot of people and a lot of families.
Absolutely. So, I don't know many people, and I've had friends. I know a lot of people. I've seen I've had friends who overdosed, and have some people who have died from overdoses. And there's really nobody. I mean, if you ask anybody in America today, they're one person removed from an opiate addict. It may not be in their immediate family, but it is almost certainly in their extended family, a cousin. I'd be shocked to meet someone who doesn't have someone in their family or their circle that is an addict. It's just it's really crazy. It is.
It is. It's in all families. Trust me.
Yeah, and it's just, it's sad, and it's just, I don't think that it gets enough attention in the media either, because it's killing a lot of people. I mean, the statistics I read were 70,000 people dying every year. I mean, people don't realize that's more. Like, the United States lost 70,000 soldiers in the entire Vietnam War, right? So now you have 70,000 people dying every year. I mean, this is a war. This is a war that needs to be fought. But you're out there fighting it, so I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. Great
thing. Anything else you wanted to share, Yolanda? We've been going for about an hour.
I
know. Well, thank you for
nice talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. You said you were a little bit nervous, but I think you did terrific. So thanks for you. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for all you do too as a lawyer.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. I mean, I try to help all of my clients, and like you said, the majority of the people I deal with, they either have they have an underlying mental health problem or an underlying drug problem, which is basically a mental health problem. But a mental health problem or a drug problem. And that's why most people end up in the criminal justice system. And there's a percentage of people who are just, I don't know what to say. They are more or less sociopaths, right? Or they're just not going to get along. They're going to do bad things. But the majority of the people in the system are good people who have real problems. So you're welcome, and thank you. Yolanda, I'm going to let you go, okay? And then I'm going to say a few more things on the show. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, I'm getting all sorts of phone calls during my interview, text messages. So thank you, everybody, for coming, watching, being in the chat. John Ray, Born Eraser, I appreciate it a lot. You guys can leave comments if you want me to follow up in any way, or if something caught your eye, you want me to talk more about it, let me know. I am going to do some more videos on this issue. What I can tell, there's a couple articles that came out I haven't had a chance to talk about yet, focusing on criminal justice, etc. Uh, there's I saw a news article. You guys are welcome. I saw a news article where a Chinese newspaper was complaining about marijuana being imported from the United States. Now they're importing record amounts of fentanyl into the United States, and at the same time complaining about marijuana being shipped from the United States into China. So I sort of found that a little bit entertaining, to say the least, and it's kind of strange. But yeah, in China, and look, I love East Asian culture and the Chinese history and the Chinese culture, but I'm not a huge fan of their government. So a lot of the news that comes out of there, in my opinion, is not necessarily free and open news. A lot of it is government ordered or sanctioned. So that was just an interesting thing. They're complaining about the United States sending marijuana to their country. Wow. They ship record amounts of deadly fentanyl into the United States. I also saw an article. I didn't get to speak on it. Maybe my next video on these topics, I'll cover both of these. I'll pull the articles up. I saw that New York, I believe the state of New York ended privatization of their prisons. Thanks, John. Privatization of their prisons. And with that, that's a big issue. It's interesting, but in this country, a lot of things are dealt with on the state level. People complain about the federal government, but change comes from the state level, and it's better that way. So if New York is the first state to outlaw private companies running prisons, I think this could be the beginning of a movement. I think we're going to see more and more of this. Now, obviously, these companies who make millions, if not billions of dollars off of running prisons, they're going to fight it. They are going to fight it. So it's going to be very interesting. And this would be sort of the canary in the coal mine for them. If they see one state go this way, they're going to be really worried about other states. And if all the states outlaw it, then they're out of business. So I imagine we're going to see a real fight. I hope it's the beginning of a movement. I don't think there's certain things I don't think that should be privatized. I'm all for the private market, and I'm a big proponent of capitalism, but a profit incentive in prisons seems a little absurd. To create an incentive for companies to have more people put in jail when we're trying to reduce crime and keep more people out of jail in the first place so that they can be productive and healthy citizens. So I'll talk about those issues more in the future. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. A huge shout out and thank you to Yolanda for coming on the show. She did great. She was nervous, but she was great. Leave a comment. If anybody here hasn't subscribed, please subscribe. Share this video once it's off. And again, thank you, everyone. Born Eraser, Ray, John, you guys are awesome. And I'll see you more in the coming days. Thanks a lot.